It could be said the village tale began 30 years ago when the Women's International Zionist Organization was born. In 30 years in Israel, WIZO has come to mean many things. Schools for agriculture and vocational training, immigrant aid, baby and child care. It has become a part of all Israel. And this is the tale of how, not long ago, WIZO came to a new immigrants' village called Atid. Atid, a little village, old, dirty, and war-scarred, and until a month ago, deserted. Today it is home for 800 Jews from Turkey, Yugoslavia, Bulgaria, Yemen, and Poland. Out of the wanderings and the exile in camps, home. Here they live. Here they work. Or wait for work. Atid's community life began with a cleanup brigade, with volunteers such as Mrs. Wolf, a new arrival from Yugoslavia. The work was organized by Yehudim from WIZO's instruction department. Here many stories began, each one very much like the other, but each one different too, filled with special problems, as Mrs. Wolf would tell you.
I invited Yehudit to come home with me for lunch. I told her that Joseph and the children would surely have something cooking. Something was cooking. Looked like the whole house. With the firefighting over, the introductions began. First, Joseph, my husband. Then the girls, Hannah, the eldest, and Leah, the baby. She doesn't let me call her baby anymore. Yehudit came to know us quickly that day, as I have since come to know others. Every family on the move carries with them, if they can, the things they need and those other things they cannot bear to leave behind. It is from these, the things that are their past and their pride, that one learns to know people. For us, it was Joseph's law books and his certificate and the pictures that I would never leave. When we posed for this picture, we never expected that it would hang in a home quite like this one. It was like no home we had ever known or thought of. But little by little, it began to be a place in which one could live if one had to. And we had to. Joseph's first attempt at building a bookcase wasn't a total success. You couldn't call him a handyman, but he tried. And as usual, Hannah exercised critical judgment, and the rest of us exercised our muscles. Finally, we were able to turn to other things. And the most important of these was that Joseph find work. When Joseph left that first time, I began to feel that life was becoming almost normal. His leaving to find work was somehow reminiscent of those mornings in the old country when he would leave to go to work. The day began well. I wondered how the children would adapt themselves. Hannah was finding this new communal kind of life difficult. What she wanted most of all was her privacy. But from the very beginning, I had no concern about Leah. Even though this was Leah's first day at the village school, with everything strange and new and different, I knew I didn't have to worry about her. Children of Leah's age have a way, one with the other, and their welcome to strangers may be casual, but it is effective and quick, and it is a welcome. Hannah's first shopping trip was complicated a little by Mrs. Malamad's youngest child. Most of us came to know our neighbors by helping each other out of trouble. That's why Hannah was late getting home from the store that day. She went by way of the WIZO kindergarten with her new acquaintance. Yehudik asked me to help at the community dining room where lunches were served to the children of the school. Israel's Department of Welfare supplies the food, and WIZO supplies the manpower, or rather the woman power. When I thought of how much of this food would go to satisfy my Leah's healthy appetite, I couldn't refuse to help. For Joseph, it had been a bad day. He visited a half-dozen law offices, and prospects for his kind of work didn't look very good. He was tired and discouraged. I wish he didn't feel so badly. After all, it was only the first day, and Joseph was such a good lawyer. Something was bound to turn up. But day followed day, and Joseph's search for legal work went on in a country whose laws and language were unfamiliar. Many things were unfamiliar, but not the things that were necessary for life. These were the same and had to be bought and paid for. School proved to be no problem at all for Leah. She did well in her classes and made friends everywhere. I worried about Hannah and about Joseph. Hannah didn't seem to know what to do with herself. Occasionally, she would help out at the kindergarten, but most of the time she did nothing. Even the party to raise money for the community center didn't interest her. Party that night for the community center was very successful. People bought everything. I could even have sold the shoes off my feet. And why not? They're nice shoes. I made them myself. The party was a great success. But not for Hannah. I remember the party for another reason. The next day, Joseph found work. Not his kind of work, but still work. Trying to make half-ruined houses habitable. Leah, too, began a work she had never known before and found she liked it. Leah's youth group started a vegetable garden, and to hear Leah tell it, one would think she had been born a farmer. Gathered in the WIZO classroom to learn Hebrew. Poor Joseph. He was the best sleeper in the class. I was worried about Joseph. When he came home from his job among the ruins, he was always so tired he couldn't keep his eyes open. But it was the only work he could find, and there wasn't much of it. 2 or 3 days a week at most. It wasn't enough. The lady at the party wanted to buy these shoes. I thought there might be others. When I finished the first pair of shoes, I showed them to Yehudit. She felt that WIZO might be very interested in selling the shoes and in teaching others to make them. WIZO was interested in the project. Very soon, we had a small industry operating in Atid. Went along for a while until the day Leah announced she wanted to go to WIZO's agricultural school at Nahalal. Part of her youth group was going. Not just for a visit, but for 3 years training, and then to a kibbutz to live. It's a shock to find the baby of a family is suddenly old enough to be planning her own life. I didn't know what to say, except that we would discuss it with her father. Joseph came home that evening with the meat ration, alive. He gave it to Leah to have it killed. And Leah chose that moment to assert her farmer's instinct. She wanted to keep the chicken. It would be good training until she went to Nahalal. Joseph thought a family secret had been kept from him. He was tired, short of patience. His answer was short, too. No. We heard a cold goodbye from Leah the next morning. She went off to school without her breakfast. It was one of those times when each must carry his problem alone. I didn't ask questions when Joseph left. He made a special trip to the WIZO office in Tel Aviv to find out the facts for himself. Yehudit was the first person he met. and she took him on to the proper office. Proud of my husband that evening. It was a difficult decision for him to make, and his deciding made it easier for me. But Joseph couldn't tell Leah, so I did. Leah went in to say thanks, and to tell us also that she wanted to go in 3 days with her group. In 3 days. The morning when she was to leave came so quickly. Them everywhere with us, and now they were gone. My husband is a good man. Nothing was the same without Leah, but the letters she sent us from Nahalal helped. At least we could share her experiences. When Leah's first letter was brought by Hannah over to the workshop, we were in the midst of expanding our home industry. Some of my neighbors had asked for a loom, and finally it arrived from WIZO's Henrietta Irwell Trade School, complete with a nice young man to install us and show us how to use it. To us, the nice young man was just somebody who came along with the loom. For Hannah, it seemed to be quite different. The young man seemed to agree with Hannah. Hannah suddenly became more civic-minded than she'd been for some time. She decided it was important that Zeb should learn all about Atid. Naturally, Hannah developed an interest in weaving. And so, when Zev had finished setting up our loom, Hannah went to Haifa to visit the Henrietta Irwell Trade School to see larger looms. We expected them both for dinner, but when they didn't come, we didn't wait. After all, it was such a nice evening. And then something happened. Our new neighbor, Mrs. Tooby, was very excited. Her little baby was sick. In the country from which Mrs. Tooby came, a small baby, so ill, usually died. Zev told us all about it, with embellishments. According to him, Hannah was practically a complete emergency medical crew in herself. One has to make allowances for a young man in love. The next morning, Hannah went to visit the baby. That began it. From then on, Hannah visited the Mothercraft training center as often as possible. She began to know what she wanted to be. All she had to do was to persuade the supervisor to want the same thing. She managed that also. During the same week, Joseph, too, became a student. The chance had come in his work to do a more responsible job than with his pick and shovel. A housing development was going up in Atid. A place was open for a second assistant to the foreman. My husband, the attorney, found himself in need of a brand new education. That night, the house was quiet, and the room was full with the feeling of important development. Joseph was busy with specifications for the new project, where, who knows, we might find a home of our own. For the first time in a long while, I felt we were finding our way forward again. We were happy and proud when Hannah was accepted as a student baby nurse. Even when she came home, Hannah brought her work with her. She also brought theirs. And the plans on which my husband spent so many hours now had a personal meaning for all of us. It had come true. We were assigned one of the houses on which he was working. It's a good feeling day after day to find how much we have become a part of this place and the way it's growing. It's hard to remember now when we didn't live in Atid.
The tale of this village, Atid, is a history of the private lives of many families. Their stories are very much alike. A struggle to hold together and to go forward again as a family. The differences are small. Some have greater problems than their neighbors. Some make their way more quickly. But each one knows he is succeeding when he finds himself suddenly in a position to help those who are starting along the way he has come. Welcoming the newcomer, and they arrive each month by the thousands, a man feels himself at home.